So from the sketch that we created earlier, continue to modify the dimensions and make these all match the same dimensions on page 216. When you complete modifying all of the dimensions, you're now ready to extrude this part. The next thing is going to be making the actual part three-dimensional. So what you're going to do is hit the finish sketch button in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. I'm just going to scroll out, zoom out, and then up here in the left-hand side under the 3D toolbar, click on Extrude. Extrude is going to automatically locate the profile. If you do not get a block that pops up like this to see like the 3D part, then you need to go back and verify that your boundaries have all been closed. You have to have a complete closed boundary when you're creating the sketches. So what we're going to do now is we're going to extrude this part 2.5 inches. You can use the online or the heads up area for placing the dimension, or you can place this dimension over here under distance A. So both the 1.0 here and in the dialog box on your screen, it's the same thing. So this controls the direction or the length of your extrude. This button right here controls the direction. So we have a choice to go in different ways when we're extruding this part. So that is the 2.5 inches, and that's extruded. Now what you can do next is look at this part in the isometric form. We're going to look at that orbit one more time. When we click on the orbit, you can see that we can rotate it. If you click with your left mouse button, that is a free rotation. Okay. If you click to the one single left click will kind of center that up. But if you click on the handles over here on the left hand side or the right side, this will change a vertical versus horizontal rotation. Okay, vertical and horizontal. And then if you click somewhere on the rim, that is perpendicular. So these methods of rotation are covered on page 218 and 219 of your textbook. So you may want to take a look at those and become familiar with that rotation or the rotation methods used in orbit. When you want to exit out of this, you can hit the escape button, or if you take your pointer over to the left of the circle or to the right, if you take it over to the right or to the left, and see that exit mark, if you click one time, that's going to take it out of your orbit mode. So then you're just in free rotation. At this time, if you hit the F6 button, that will set up the default for the default display for your extrude. So as you get finished up with this part, let's go ahead and start looking on to the couple other pages in the textbook. So on 220, 221, 222, 223, 224, 225, there's a lot of information about changing up and looking at your screen and how to navigate through your either your 3D views or even your 2D views. I would spend a little bit of time looking at these options as you start to go through these items. You're going to probably develop a method that works for you, and that method is going to probably be the one that you kind of stick with. So take a look at those options and get familiar with those. The key things that I like to work with, and I'll just kind of share with you the quick and easy ones that I find to be most useful, because the next 4 pages goes over a lot of different ways to basically do the same thing. My number one go-to is to click on the orbit a lot. When I'm trying to spin this around and look at it, I usually hold down the left button and pan, zoom around. And if I'm trying to look into a specific area or kind of move it around, using your scroll button on your mouse in order to zoom in and zoom out. And if you're not using a mouse, then you may want to, kind of spend a little bit more time looking at the commands over here in the viewing toolbar in order to get familiar with what's going to work for you if you're using a laptop. The Viewcube is kind of like one of my go-to when I'm trying to look at the different views. If I'm looking at the front view and I want to see what it looks like from the front, you can pick on the front view. The 2 arrows right here allow you to spin that, so you can spin it around 90 degrees by clicking on that, and then that can change it. If I want to look at the bottom of the view, click on the bottom arrow of the front view, and that's going to move it to the bottom, and then that will flip that around. And then, you can go from, there's the top view if I want to go over to the right. So just basic orientation, looking at this as if it's a cube. Now, what's nice with this also is you can click on the corners of the cube, and it will also go to that particular corner. So very handy to just click on that corner sometimes, and I just think this is just a really great addition to Inventor. Now, I did tell you to use the F6 button, so if you get into an area and you just want to hit F6, that will quickly toggle that back into the default view. There is a navigation wheel. If you pull the navigation wheel out, just happens to be one thing I don't use as much. But one of the things in here that is neat, that maybe you were looking at something and you want to go back and, like I had this at a particular view, you can click on the rewind button and you can go back and go through each one of those objects, whatever you were looking at. So if you had worked up a particular view and you were looking at something, that rewind button is something that remembers each one of those views. So I think that one's pretty neat, something I probably don't find very often. And definitely using the pan button. If I'm using a laptop and I don't have my mouse connected, then I've definitely got to use that pan button. So I think one of my initial thought is when I use a laptop with Inventor, I got to make sure I have a mouse to go along with it. It just helps me. Moving over to page 225, let's take a look. There are different views you can have. Right now we have just set, this is our very basic default shaded with edges. So if you click on the view toolbar up here at the top, you can go to visual style and look at the different options that are available. So you can have hidden edges. Sometimes this is great when you're trying to look at something and see, what's going on inside the part. You have a hidden line, and then it can identify what's going on the inside. If I had a hole in that part, I could quickly see that, where that hole is, what it looks like. There's the wireframe with just the visible edges, so you can get rid of that and just have a wireframe, monochrome, just very basic. For those that need a little artistic flair, maybe if it's a sketch, sometimes, we have to provide sketches of something, as a presentation drawing. The watercolor or the sketch illustration makes that part maybe not quite so defined looking and like an actual part. And then there's a technical illustration. So this is display modes. You're free to change that to whatever makes it easy for you to work with. I guess I'll skip a little bit ahead. If you don't like your screen and your backup, this isn't in the textbook, but if you want to change like the colors of your screen, oftentimes I'll change mine to the presentation, especially because it has the white background, and it's just easier for me to use on a board or projector. So if you need to change any of the colors that are preset, then you can change those as you're working on that desktop or your laptop, and keep those set up.